Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Matt, but you may know me as Lazy Urchin. Now, about a week ago, a little over a week ago actually, I started playing Pokemon Silver, but with an Extreme Randomizer because A, I love chaos of randomization, and B, I had never played a Gen 2 game before. And so I decided, screw it, I'll play my first one in the worst way possible. And so, upon starting out this journey of Pokemon Silver, Extreme Randomized, I found that things were not going to go my way at the very beginning. But before I get into that, let me change into some fancy duds to really match the surroundings. That's better. Now, getting into it, my starter that I chose was an Ice Grass Noctowl, and that dickhead up above there had a Vaporeon, so his name was Green Text. My second Pokemon that I kept on my team was what was instead of the red Gyarados. And that thing turned out to be a ghost-type Beedrill that I named Gyarados because, of course, and also because I did not have a solid naming structure. Now, Gyarados was a beast, honestly. Like, in the champion fight, my Noctowl fell, and I sent out my Gyarados, and it just one-shot, not even a crit, just one-shot the enemy for the final Pokemon in the Champions battle. It was awesome. Continuing on from there, when I went and raided the Team Rocket hideout with Drake, the 3 Voltorb on my side of the room turned out to be Tyranitar, Hypno, and Snorlax, going from the bottom to top. And I decided, yes, I could use a couple of powerhouses on my team, so I decided to snag up the Tyranitar and the Snorlax. The Tyranitar turned out to be a pure fighting type, and the Snorlax was a bug steel. And so I named the Tyranitar a name I can't say because copyright, and I named the Bug Steel Snorlax after a incredibly broken Bug Steel Pokemon I had in a previous run of a different ROM hack, which I might be covering after this. I don't know. It all depends on how much I hate myself. Anyways, let's learn some more about my team, shall we? When I was going through the ice path, which is miserable, might I add, I found a Granbull, and I love Granbull. Granbull is an amazing Pokemon, especially nowadays, and in this one, it got turned into a Steel type, which was like, oh, hey, perfect for the shiny, which is a Grayscale. So I caught it. I didn't even know what type it was. I caught a shiny one, and I named it Chain Chomp, or technically CC. C dot, C dot. C dot, C dot. I miss Gen 3. I should play a Gen 3 ROM hack soon. But anyways, I named it Chain Chomp. Big ol' bulky steel type, big steel type Granbull. Downside, it didn't have base Granbull's moveset. It had randomized moveset. So it wasn't all that great, but it had more health than Snorlax, so it was a decent enough tank. On to the next one, shall we? Imagine you go through most of the game. You go through most of the first part of the game, all the Johto section. You get the Silver Wing. You go through the Whirl Islands. You get ready to see what Lugia is. And it turns out to be an Ampharos. For me, Lugia was a water-type Ampharos. Just let that sink in. The only legendary that I could catch was randomized to be an Ampharos. Yep. It turned out pretty decently, though. It was actually pretty good. Nowhere near as good as my Noctowl or Gyarados, but it was still a pretty good one. It was my final Pokemon on my team, but, well, whatever. I would like to point out while I'm here, my Noctowl had Dynamic Punch or Dizzy Punch. One of those two. It was Dizzy Punch. Dizzy Punch. And it would just... Every legendary I saw, I just had it punch at least once. And a good majority of those were in the early game, when I was kind of higher leveled. And so it would just demolish them to the point I started taking account, because I was like, well, gee, I should probably make sure I understand how many of these it's killed. So that was that. Let's move on. At this point, I had gathered all the badges, so I decided to cheat code warp to the Indigo Plateau. But since I was feeling that wasn't quite good enough, I wanted to fight the final arrival battle. So I walked into the end of Victory Road and started the battle anyway. He had a Dugtrio, a Stantler, a Delibird, a Seal, a Typhlosion, and a Tentacool. I don't know what any of their types were, but it was easy stuff. I hated that fight because of how easy it was. But at the same time, it was still not as easy as the final few battles, but we'll get to those. After sufficiently walloping him, I went back to the Indigo Plateau. I don't have any memory of the Elite Four battles other than they're all fast and they were all weak as crap, man. Also, I was playing Dr. Feelgood by Motley Crue, so that made it all go by faster. Drake was pretty much a pushover. His team was Meganium, Gyarados, Kabutops, Apom, Ladian, and Kingdra, which was kinda okay, but then it's like, wow, they're all really weak. Still not a little bit easier than the rival fight, but still really stupid easy, and I was kinda getting disappointed. Because I didn't want to go through the problem of doing all the Kanto gym leaders, I just cheat code warped myself to the Pokemon Center at the bottom of Mount Silver, and then made my way up there. I probably should have gone through Kanto, because I didn't find any Pinsir, and that was one thing I wanted to see. I wanted to see what typing it would be randomized into, but I went to the bottom of Mount Silver and fought Red. And let me be honest here, that man's team was bad. Because I didn't want to go through and poorly draw a Grand Bull, a Nidoqueen, a Magcargo, a Piloswine, a Misdreavus, and a Lickitung, I didn't. So instead we're going to take a peeksy up at this little screenshot here. Before we do, I'm going to talk about Red's team for a second there. The Grand Bull was the only real problem, besides the Piloswine. The Piloswine had Mystical Fire. Bro had Mystical Fire, which, I don't know what type it randomized into, but I'm pretty sure it was Fire still, because it did super effective damage to, like, 90% of my team. But other than that, and the Grand Bull, which I didn't really have anything good for, it was a total pushover. But yeah. Hey, so, it's Matt, post-game screenshots, after modifying a whole bunch of them and just drawing whatever. Essentially, the reasoning behind the pink Kabutops shown is because I found a cheat code where you could manipulate what Pokemon spawned. Because Pokemon Silver and Pokemon Red and all that, like, the Game Boy and Game Boy Color games have so many great cheat codes. And basically, when you set it up, any Pokemon that'll spawn after that point become whatever Pokemon you put into the code. I put in Corsola, because I wanted to see what Corsola's type would be randomized into. It was Rock Flying, if memory serves me right. But because I put it in mid-battle, it recognized the Kabutops as a Pokemon that was in battle and recognized, hey, the code's active. And basically went, well, this is a Corsola now. And it modified the colors to match that. When I did catch it, because I did catch it, it became a Corsola afterwards. But it was hilarious. It's like, oh, pink Corsola, I need a screenshot of this. But yeah, anyways, back to the video. So, at the time of drawing this final image here that's shown right now, I was so incredibly tired. and at a kind of a low point mentally, but I was glad that I was done with the gameplay. And so I decided, you know what, screw it, I'm just gonna put down a bunch of random stuff I thought about. But, yeah. The entire game was wild, because it was harder in the early game than it was in the end game. And that's really how a lot of things should be, but not to this degree. Like, a good RPG, for an example, like Legend of Zelda. A lot of the older Legend of Zelda games are harder in the very beginning, but by the end of it, you've gotten used to the game, and you understand the mechanics, and you've gotten powerful gear and all that. This was like, it was hard, and then I got to the 4th gym, I think Chuck is. I got to Chuck, 4th gym or whatever, and that was the last really hard thing in the game. Other than the time it crashed and I lost the progress of the entire rocket hideout. That was pretty hard to deal with. But anyways, it just kind of felt like it got easy too quickly. Also, not a lot of people had legendaries, but there were a lot of wild legendaries. Uh, one funny thing to note is, in the original Gold and Silver, Morty, just before you fight him, he goes, "You will bring me one step closer to seeing a legendary Pokemon." And then in this, he had a Celebi on his team, and it's like, oh, okay. I mean, you didn't just see one, you caught one, but okay. But yeah, I'm thinking of doing, like, a run of one of my favorite ROM hacks out there soon, and doing a video on that, but that'll take, like, a good decent while, because these do take a good decent while. I have to play through the game, so that's like 20 hours or more, and then I gotta do all the drawings and organize everything, get around to voice acting it, and sometimes these don't even work to upload, so, ah well. It's been a good one, folks. Have a good evening, and be good people. This has been Matt. See you laters.